We could talk about cap room, we could talk about trades, we could talk about free agents, but this summer is really about one thing for the Orlando Magic, and that's securing the future with extensions. In our last part of our three-part discussion with Keith Smith of Spotrac, we talk about Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs and how the Magic handle them in a completely new environment. Today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is May 27th. It will be May 28th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to finish off our three-part conversation with Keith Smith of Spotrac, talking about probably the most important part of the Magic's offseason, how they handle extension talks with Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs, plus how the NBA's new TV deal, which is set to take effect after this season, how that affects everything the Magic are doing this offseason. We'll get to all that, plus recap what we've talked about over the last 3 days coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. Obviously, we have gone through a lot here over the last 3 days, the last 2 days, and now this coming up on a third day. It is a busy offseason. We are expecting the Magic to really use their cap room to at least add one more starter and be aggressive. Like, this is the time to spend, but as Jeff Weltman has always said, the clock is always ticking, and eventually those players that are coming off so cheap off their rookie contracts, they're going to start to cost a little bit more. And that's really, honestly, we could talk about all the free agents. We could talk about Malik Monk, Tyus Jones, D'Angelo Russell. We'll get to Tyus Jones later on in the week. We'll get to what's going on we're going to do the rest of our normal week stuff. We'll have a draft. We're not doing draft Tuesday. We'll do draft on Thursday. We'll do playoff catch up tomorrow. This summer, though, is really about seeing what Franz Wagner's worth and what Jalen Suggs is worth. So without further ado, let's chat about it with Keith Smith, the future of the Orlando Magic. We've been dancing around it, I think, for the majority of this show. And I think all of the free agent discussions involving the Magic and offseason discussions involving the Magic have been dancing around this. I think the most important thing the Magic do this offseason is extensions for Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner. I think that no matter what else they do, getting those two things done now is it sends us like, people don't think this matters, but I do think it does. It sends a signal that we're going to take care of our own. Like, if you're here, Jeff Weltman, I think, has a very good reputation for being upfront with players and really kind of, in some ways, going out of his way to take care of players and take care of them contractually, even though he loves the kind of front-loaded deal, which I'm still confused why agents want that. And I think they're going to want that even less this year, as much as I think the Magic would love to, like, maybe get one of those front-loaded specials in there. But getting those extensions done, I feel like it's very clear that those two players are just so key to what the Magic are doing. Getting those done is going to be really, really important. And I feel like getting them done now, and obviously Paolo's, he's going to get a max, whatever that max looks like. It might be a super max. That might be a regular max. Franz Wagner, I think there's some debate about whether he'll get a max. I think you max him personally. Just as much for the statement of that, like, this is our guy. We believe in him. If you don't believe in him as a max player, I think that says a lot more than otherwise. But it feels like this is because we know, Weltman's talked about it. Every young team, that bill comes due. And because we know that bill is coming due soon, and we know that the cap is about to jump up exponentially. Does that put more pressure on the Magic to do something this season while everyone's still kind of at that lower cap number before things start? It's only going to increase by 10% every year, but that's still going to be a $14-15 million increase per year. It's going to, like, I think you did a great job in those posts the other day, just kind of giving us an idea, like Franz, like, if I'm not mistaken, if Franz gets the max, his starting salary is like $33 million. Like, Paolo's starting salary is going to be like $38 million on his, if he gets a 33% max, that's like $42 million. Like, the numbers here are about to get very crazy. Do the Magic need to spend almost like they're at those numbers already just to be ready for what's coming?
You don't have to, but I think it would behoove them to get in front of some of this stuff now. So Franz, for example, if they give him a max deal, that would start, obviously, just so everybody knows, not this year. They've got him for $7 million this year. So this is going to kick in with the 25-26 season. The unfortunate thing is that is where we project the 10% cap jump to come in. So the maxes are tied, so they will also go up by 10%, meaning they will go up by whatever the same amount the cap goes up by. So 25% of the cap max for him projects to be about $38.7 million in first-year salary. I'm fine with that. No issue. Here's why. Let's say they max him out. The most he'll go up each year is 8% via the raises, because that's the max raise structure. Well, for at least a handful of years, somewhere between probably 3 and 5 years, the cap is going to go up a minimum of 10% a year because of the cap smoothing. We did not, in this new CBA, the NBA did not agree to a spot with the NBPA where it's, all right, we're just going to let the cap set at what it should set at, because all it ever does is helps one free agent class. Welcome to Timofey Mozgov and Lou Aldez.
It's Bismack Biyombo all over again.
Yep. That's how you get Kevin Durant to the Golden State Warriors, because they all of a sudden had $30 million in cap space when they thought they were only going to have, 20 initially. So what would have happened this summer is we might have seen, had they not have done the smoothing, we might have seen up to about a 45% increase in the cap, which would have been about a $60 million jump.
Chaos.
So things would have got wild. It would have got absolutely, bananas, and nothing would have worked the way it should work moving forward. So because they did the smoothing, it may take 2, 3, maybe even 4 to 5 years to kind of catch up to where it should be. Because it should have gone up 45%, can only go up 10. Well, that's some leftover. That spills into the next year, and that keeps happening until we eventually caught up. That's how it's called smooth. So in this case, Franz starts out at the big number. He goes up 8%. Cap goes up 10. The next year, the cap goes up 10 on that. He doesn't go up another full 8%, because 8% is only to set the raise off that first year. So whatever 8% of 38 million is, that's like 3.6 million or something in that range. When that goes up, it goes up again by that same amount. So now he starts out 25% of the cap. That'll probably lower down into a range of 24, then probably 23, 22. By the time we're done with the deal, we're talking 20 to 21%, which that's fine. That's not a number anybody should be overly concerned about, freaking out about by any means, because you're in a place where that's a number that's very, very content. We put on Spotrac, when you go into the multi-year view for each team, we put the percentage of the cap next to each salary number. And the reason we do that is to try to reframe the thinking, because I get it. When you start seeing, when you're way out there, salaries that are 50, 60, 70, eventually 90 and 100 million in a year, that is like, what is this? Like, I don't even, like, is this just monopoly money? Is this crypto scams? Like, what are we doing? What you end up in a world is, no, it's still just 35% of the cap. It's just that's how much the cap has gone up. It's still that's where we're at. So you say all of that on a full max there. So now with Franz, you do that. Jalen Suggs, I'm probably not giving him the full max. I'm just not quite there. But if Jalen Suggs is like, hey man, I need 30 million a year to start out with, done. Not even going to blink. I'm going to give it to him and move. Paolo the next year, let's say Paolo qualifies for the 30% max. Great. That means he was an all-NBA guy. So let me be realistic. He's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year.
No.
He's probably not winning MVP. But all-NBA guy, great. I'll pay you 30% happily, because that means you were great and we were probably very, very good as a team. Because again, even off of that, the raises are going to be outpaced by the growth of the cap for several years, if not all the way through the duration of those next contracts for all those players. You got to be very careful, because that's where this summer, let's say they did go add Zach LaVine on top at 40 million, 45, 50 million, and getting into that range. That's where now all of a sudden you're running into, oh boy, we got really expensive. We're in a Timberwolves situation where, boy, we're really good, but how are we going to keep this team together? Because we have all our homegrown guys we've re-signed, but we traded for the max dude and Rudy Gobert, and now where are we going? That's where you go to if you're the Magic, if you do that one. But again, hey, if you're in the in the Magic's case, if you're in the Eastern Conference Finals with a chance to go to the NBA Finals, I don't think anybody really cares. Everybody's going to be fine. I don't care. I'm not paying the tax anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. Let's go. So that becomes a little bit different there.
Let's take a quick break so I can tell you a quick word for our friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL with conference finals in full swing. The championship round, the finals are in focus with the Larry O'Brien Trophy and the Stanley Cup on the line. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Take home a trophy yourself. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Don't forget as well to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel. If you're like me, you want the best sports information. You want the best of the best for the biggest stories in sports. And you're not going to get that from the national networks. They're just going to kind of jump in and say whatever's off the top of their head. You want the local experts. And so the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel gives you all the big stories in sports from the perspective of the local experts who know their team best. Get the best information possible without the shouting, without the screaming, without the hot takes, all on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel. You can find that on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And I'll say this one thing to kind of close it out. Some people say, well, don't they have to be really careful they don't go too far into the luxury tax? Sure, to some extent. And I've seen the people say, their history is they don't always spend a lot. It's not true. They paid a lot of luxury tax when you had the Dwight Howard team to keep that team together.
They were hesitant to pay the tax during the Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill era. And because Grant, for reference, just to show how much things have inflated, I believe Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill were paid about $17 million a year, and those were max contracts.
Yeah,
that was 2000.
I didn't even know it was that high.
Yeah, we've come a long way, and I think there's always these markers that say a good offense scores 105, 110 points, and it's like, no, that's not actually the case anymore. Like the Magic average 105 points per game; they're one of the worst offenses in the league. Those people still want to think a $20 million a year player is a starter. And it's like, no, he's not. A starter is now going to be 25+ million. And
30. Yeah, you may have a starting group where it's all $30 million.
Yeah.
Hey, so Grant Hill, I just looked it up. First year salary, you're almost double what his first year max was. It was $9.6 million.
Jeez.
And that was a max deal when he signed that with the Magic in 2000. So in less than 25 years, we have quadrupled what a max contract can be in that first year. So there's some perspective, right? It was under $10 million. And that was at the time, it was oh my gosh, what happened? But you're right. They did get a little gun shy because Hill got hurt. They got burned by it and it got a little messy. But in the Dwight years, they went into the tax because it was, we're competing for championships. So.
I don't there's a lot of things to say about the DeVos family.
Sure.
And they've obviously spent more on basketball operations, I think, under Jeff Weltman than they have in previous years. So there are areas where they are cheap and they needed to be better. Yep. They have never been cheap about players. They have spent on players. You need to give them a reason to spend, obviously. But when this team was good, they were all in on winning that championship. I know people criticize the summer of 2009 a lot, and we can relitigate that summer another time. They understood they weren't willing to pay Hito Turkoglu, but they said, our championship window is still open. Let's go out and spend. They went out and got Vince Carter. They let JJ Redick was a restricted free agent. They let his matching rights kind of sit there. They snuck in Marcin Gortat and Brandon Bass. And then, Marcin Gortat was a free agent. They snuck in Brandon Bass and then matched Marcin Gortat on top of that because Dallas wanted him, if I'm not mistaken. They did a lot of things to keep that, to make sure that they, I would argue the 2010 team's the best team in Magic history, but that's an argument for another day too.
I think they are very, very willing to pay as long as it's for a title contender. Yeah. And that's where, in a couple years, that's where we're hoping this team is, right? That's where we're all hoping the Magic get to, is a point where it is, all right, we're competing, if not for titles, we're competing for the conference finals, the finals. And honestly, I would say if you're in that range, you're competing for the title. Like, that's just the reality.
If you're in the final four, you're competing for a championship.
That's it. Yeah. A little luck goes your way. Even if you're the Indiana Pacers and you shouldn't be there, you get a little luck, you're fine, right? Now you are.
And this is, and I think this is a larger point about the league in general. And I think we're going to see this effect as the new CBA kind of really sinks in. There's more parity in the league than ever before. We got a 5 seed and a 6 seed. We got a 5 seed facing a 3 seed and a 1 seed facing a 6 seed in the playoffs. The last day of the regular season, the Magic could have finished. The Magic won, they were 5th. They lost, they were 8th. And the West would say it's been like that out West for a decade. Like, this is
another result went their way. The Magic still could have been like the 2 seed. Yeah, in the last couple of days.
They were the 3 seed the Sunday before the end of the regular season. Yep. Like, it's the standings are always going to be tight. And
we're crowning a six different champion this year, right? Six years in a row with a new champion. So the league is where they want to be as far as that kind of competitive balance. Teams can come from anywhere. If you look at this Final Four, Boston and Dallas are pretty big markets. Minnesota and Indiana, not so big markets. So, teams can kind of come from anywhere now. So that's the very different thing. And last thing I'll kind of say is that the cap is going to keep it's not going to explode and spike, but it's just going to keep growing. And here's the nice thing. You lock into a guy for 25%, Franz Wagner, perhaps, and you lock in for 25% of the cap, does he get 25% every year? That's the big point I was trying to make, is you lock him in at a number, and if the cap keeps growing, guess what? He still only gets what he gets off of that. And that's where that makes a big difference. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to have a couple years where it gets kind of tight. But then you can get into a position where it becomes, all right, we had a couple years where it got tight, but now for the most part, the doorbell rang, so the dog's losing their mind. Now it got a little tight against the tax here, but then it freed back up because contracts came off the books, whatever it is. What you can't do is you can't overpay role players. That gets you in trouble by too much. And you can't commit star money to guys who don't become stars. That's where you end up a little sideways on this stuff. But for the most part, I think they're going to be okay. I think it's going to be a really fun summer. We'll see where it goes. We didn't get too deep into names. I like Anthony Simons for this group probably more than a lot of people do. I don't know that Portland is fully ready to move on from him. If they're not, I would move right down the next name on the list and say, think about Malcolm Brogdon. You open to trading him. He may even cost a little bit less to go get. I think both of those guys can make a lot of sense. And here's the thing, where the Magic are very well positioned is we can go get a couple players at targeted positions from teams like Portland. Portland stinks, and Portland is going to be right around the luxury tax line at the start of the offseason, just because they took on money in the Dame trade and then the subsequent Drew Holiday trade. They've got some of their own guys. They re-signed Jeremy Grant, whatever it was. When they took that money in, they're in a spot where it's like, uh-oh, like we can't be a luxury tax team. That's where go be poachers this summer. Go say, hey, you got to get off some money. Let's go. We believe this guy is the right guy. Let's go get that player. And that's where I think the Magic can do a lot of work and be really set up for success.
And I think that's like, we had that. I talked with Mike Richmond of Locked On Blazers about that very scenario, and how the Magic can kind of help them get under the tax, get up below the tax line a little bit more. It feels like that's very much Portland's goal. I'd also like to note to our friends at ESPN, NBC, and Amazon, Indiana, Minnesota are in the conference finals. Ratings have still been pretty good. Just it's not about market size anymore. If you got dynamic stars, it is what it is. Keith, I think the dog is telling us that it's time to end this. I said 40 minutes. We're at an hour 11 total.
And I responded with, "It's nice to meet you" for the first time.
We do this every year, so we'll split this
stretch goal.
Well, it's already done. We're splitting this into 2 episodes. But Keith, tell everyone where they can find you if they have any off-season questions or want to read your off-season prep.
Yeah, if you're really into all this kind of stuff and transactions and all that, you can find all my written work over on Spotrac. Right now, I'm running my off-season preview series. Here's the great news for Magic fans. Haven't gotten to them yet because we go in order of elimination. So we're not quite there yet. We will get to them probably next week, I think, is when theirs will run and go up, and you'll get my full fleshed out written thoughts on what Orlando can do this summer. There's also going to be free agent rankings that are going up. Maybe of interest to Magic fans, free agent point guards are already up. There are 217 prospective free agents this summer before option decisions and the like have been made. I've written something about all 217 of them. So when they go up, if you're interested in, oh, who's this guy? Oh, over here. I've kind of heard the name. What's it like? You pull his stats up, and then you can look and see what I think of that player. There it's just short little blurbs, like less than a paragraph long. If you like this kind of discussion, NBA Front Office Show, Trevor Lane and I, every day, Monday through Friday, we cover all the latest news and notes. Transaction season is our time. That's when we go live multiple times during free agency at night to break down everything that had happened. We'll be live for the NBA draft, probably both nights this year. We'll see. And then we do a live show every Friday. We call it Front Office Friday, where that's the fan show. That's the chance for them to ask questions and come in. We let you guys program that one. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely use Keith as a resource. He's my cap guy. He's the guy I go to whenever I have cap questions, and I've probably already gotten 20 million things wrong that I should have asked him about beforehand. So I thank Keith for coming on and giving us the lowdown on the Magic's offseason and the big decisions they have ahead. It is a big one for the Orlando Magic. Keith, we will definitely circle back around after the offseason is all done and things start to calm down. Although, are things ever really calm in the NBA? There's always something. But Keith, thanks again for coming on and helping us out.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I want to thank Keith for hopping on, as he does really 2 times a year. We have him on to chat a little bit about the Magic and their future. And I want to take just a moment here at the end of the show, because we've gone through a lot here. 30-minute episode on Friday, another 40-minute episode. Now probably another 20 minutes. I'm going to edit it after I'm done recording here. But I want to just recap some of the finer points that we talked about. One, I think it's really important what Keith said and what Keith brought out, that the Magic are going to be aggressive here. Like, this is an opportunity for the team to get significantly better and to improve the team. But, and I agree with him on this is not a summer where the Magic are going to go out there and win the headlines. I thought the way we closed our episode on Monday was probably the thesis statement of the summer. It's not an off season where the Magic are going to make some hugely splashy move that gets all the headlines, that gets them 2 or 3 more national television appearances because they added someone that big. But it's going to be a summer where by the time we get to June, because the Magic will be playing in June, or when we get to May, the Magic will certainly be playing in May, we hope, next season. But when we get to May, mid-May, June, everyone's going to be saying, I didn't think much of that move, but it actually paid off big dividends for this young team. It's really important, as we discussed during the show, that the Magic do have something. Like, it's not like they're starting from scratch. It's not like 2016 when the Magic went to the summer with cap room, at a summer when everyone had cap room, but they went to the summer with cap room looking to make something happen, looking to rescue the season and to use free agency in the offseason to be good. Orlando will not do this. I don't think that they will stand pat. But Orlando could stand pat, and I would still feel very confident that they're going to be at least a play-in team. This team is good. And if there's one thing we should take from this season and what the Magic accomplished this season, it's that this team is good. This team does have something to work with. Now, we got to worry about the problem with Moore. If you don't know what the problem with Moore is, it's Pat Riley-ism. As much as we hate Pat Riley, he's a basketball genius. It's a Pat Riley-ism that says as you get more successful, players start to be more about themselves and looking out for themselves rather than sacrificing for the team. And you see this a lot with teams that experience a little bit of success. It goes to their head. It's human nature. They start thinking, okay, what do I need to get in my next contract? And honestly, what was so impressive about the Magic is there was no ego in that team. Everybody was in it for each other. Everyone picked each other up. It's actually, I think, one of the reasons why you want to take care of Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs now is so that that's off their head. But like even a guy like Markelle Fultz, why was Markelle Fultz a nominee for Teammate of the Year? That dude is all about his teammates, always has been. But even in a contract year, he was willing to take a step back and say, I'm going to do what's best for the team, not necessarily what's best for me. I'm not going to complain about it. Like Markelle Fultz should always have our respect for that. He had a lot riding on the season, and yeah, injuries kind of slowed him down. I don't think any of us are expecting the Magic to bring Markelle Fultz back, and I hope Markelle Fultz signs somewhere, and I want him to have so much success because that dude gave everything to the Magic in his time here in Orlando since 2019. And again, it's just timing's not right, team's not right for him, and then hopefully he can find a place for him that he can thrive. I want him to kill the Magic. Just in the Western Conference, hopefully. But that's kind of the point here is the Magic have to figure out a way to bottle that up again and to have that chemistry and hopefully, as much as Jeff Weltman hates the term, have this culture play out again. The other big thing that Keith talked about is kind of the machinations of the cap and the fact that the Magic do have a lot of flexibility. And just because they don't pick up Joe Ingles' team option, or just because they don't pick up Mo Wagner's team option, does not mean that that guy is done and gone, that he's not coming back. The Magic have a lot of tools at their disposal this summer, whether it's cap room to absorb players and trades, because remember, it's really important to remember, cap room is not just about free agents, it's also about how much money you can bring back in a trade. And the Magic do have a lot of flexibility to bring back a lot of money in trades this offseason. That's one of the reasons why you're going to hear the Magic's name connected in trades a lot. We've already heard it with Brandon Ingram, our friends at Locked On Pelicans, an episode on that. We're not going to bother because the Magic are not interested in Brandon Ingram. There's another guy on the Pelicans I'm kind of interested in, but we'll get to that later. But the Magic are, obviously we talked about Anthony Simons already. The Magic will be connected to a lot of different players, both free agents and trades, and because the Magic do have this flexibility. Now, a lot of these decisions are going to be made on June 29th. We're a month away from the Magic having to make very big decisions. Obviously, the draft now about a month away as well. That's going to be a big decision point. And again, just because we may hear something agreed to on draft night that is not completed until after the calendar year flips over. The NBA calendar begins on July 1st. That's why all these deadlines are June 30th or June 29th. Once the calendar flips over, then then maybe we'll see some trades kick in because then the Magic will have the cap room to absorb some things. So keep an eye on that as well. Ultimately, though, as we talked about today, all of this whole summer is about setting up the next 5 years. Let's just say the next 4 or 5 years, because Franz Wagner is coming off his rookie contract. Both he and Jalen Suggs are extension eligible, and the Magic now have to navigate a new complication, one that we talked a little bit about last week, that this new TV deal is going to dramatically increase salaries. I would advocate for this. The Magic should consider, with all the cap room they have, starting to pay whoever they're going after, whoever they're extending, whether it's Franz or Jalen Suggs, they need to start paying them salaries on this anticipated new salary cap environment. They need to just get ahead of it and say, this is, we are in a position to get two guys before this big kind of bump. And that's our advantage over Sacramento, who can only offer Malik Monk, I believe, $17.5 million in that first year. The Magic can easily pass that. Or Isaiah Hartenstein, if the Magic want to go the center route. Knicks can only offer him like $17 million. They do have the cap room, but they got to use some of that on OG Anunoby. They got some cap machinations that they got to work themselves through to ensure that they can keep their team together. This is really what's at the heart and the struggle, I think, for Jeff Weltman and the Magic front office, is they have to begin predicting what the future of the league looks like. And look, we all have a pretty good idea. This new TV deal is going to come in at around $7 billion per year. It is going to double the amount that the NBA was making on the previous TV deal. I've seen some reporting suggesting that the NBA and the NBPA may agree to front load that money into this year's cap. So the Magic may have even more cap room coming in this summer unexpectedly. If this TV deal is completed beforehand, the money won't actually hit anyone's pocketbook until the deal starts. But there's at least some suggestion that maybe the NBA, because the deal is going to just so dramatically increase the salary cap, that they may count it for cap purposes starting this summer. I'm very skeptical that that's going to happen, especially this late in the game. TV deal is not done, is not finalized. They're not going to anticipate that until it is done and finalized. But that's how much money is entering this ecosystem. It is a vastly different game. And so we're expecting Paolo Banchero to have a max that starts at $38-39 million. We are, Franz Wagner's max contract, I believe, comes in at like $32, $33, $34 million. It would not surprise me. I had Jalen Suggs pegged as $25 million per year. It would not surprise me if the Magic come to a deal that starts him at 27, 28, 29, maybe even $30 million a year. And we got to get used to these new numbers. For me, I still kind of perceive starters as $20 million a year, $20 million a year players. The reality is that may not be the case this year. You may be able to get away paying Malik Monk 23, 24 a year. But it's going to come very, very quickly that a starter in the NBA makes $25 million a year. And if you're the Magic and you have this advantage and there are players you want to go after, or there are players that seemingly have big salaries now that will not be so big in 2 to 3 years, like an Anthony Simons, not Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine's getting paid $40 million a year. That's still very, very expensive. But like an Anthony Simons is being paid $26, $27 million a year now. That's not going to kill you in 2-3 years. That may be a risk that you're willing to take. This is the environment the Magic are coming into, and these are the things the Magic have to consider. I will say this. For my offseason plan, and maybe this needs to be its own episode, but for my offseason plan, my first priority is Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs. Take care of them. More than anything else, it sends a message to the rest of the league that we take care of our people. We will overpay someone that we believe in and take care of them. And frankly, like, I'm going to say this front and center, I'd max Franz Wagner. I don't mess around with that. If you believe in him, if you believe he is your second star that you're going to build around, don't mess around with the numbers. Just take care of him. Just say, this is our guy. This is the guy we believe in. Take care of him. If you don't believe that, if you don't believe wholeheartedly that Franz Wagner is your guy and you need him to prove it for another year, I say that actually is more alarming than anything else at this point. But having said that, there are cap reasons to wait. His cap hold is much lower. If you feel like there's a free agent next summer that you would want to get and you are going to have the cap room based on what you do this summer, I can understand waiting on that, knowing that deal is kind of under the table, ready to go. His cap hold as coming off a rookie contract is going to be much more advantageous if there are moves you want to make next summer. So that would be a reason to hold off on Franz. I think we're going to do a Franz Wagner episode here. If not this week, then probably not this week because we're super busy this week. But next week, I think we're going to do a big Franz Wagner episode, talk about his entire season and what comes next for him. I'm going long here, but these are the terms of the summer. And so extensions are number one. Number two, bring in a starting shooting guard. Number three, whether it's by trade or by free agency. And number three, I would say let's add depth. 2 players off the bench. One to at least hedge against Jet Howard being ready to go or not. I'd still prefer a veteran in that spot. And then a third center to replace Goga Bitadze. So my ideal summer, if I'm the Magic, from acquisition standpoint, starting point guard, specifically a point guard, a starting point guard, a backup wing, and Tristan Da Silva from, in the draft could be that, but a backup wing or backup or like more added depth to the roster, preferably in that 2-3 spot. And then third center, replace Goga Batadze or keep Goga Batadze, either way. We could definitely get into whether trading Wendell Carter is an option. If that happens, you need to bring in starting center as well, but that's essentially my summer for the Magic. And obviously they have a lot of ways to get this done. And we'll talk plenty more about that over the next month as we get ready for free agency on July 1st. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the home-based podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page. I have started player evaluations at long last, finished my season recap. We are on to player evaluation, started with Wendell Carter. You can get that exclusively on my Patreon page. My usual season player evaluations now on my Patreon page at Orlando Magic Hub. That's patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. I want to thank Keith Smith as well, again, for coming on to the show and helping us out with transaction stuff and summer stuff. Always does a great job with that. You can find his work at Spotrac, SPOTRAC.com. He is still going in order of elimination with summer outlooks. He just did the Miami Heat, so the Magic are probably 2, 3, 4 teams down the road. But Orlando certainly still waiting for the big summer recap. We'll link that when that goes up. You can get lots of great information about the offseason there. You can also hit him up at Keith Smith NBA. I don't know if he'll be celebrating quite yet. I'm recording this as the Celtics-Pacers game gets started. So we'll hear I'm sure he will be either delirious or frustrated, depending on the result of that game. Don't forget also to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel. You can find that on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to catch up on what's going on in the conference finals, see what we can learn about it from the Magic perspective, maybe some playoff lessons in there as well. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, play some catch up on what's going on around the league, maybe get to some rumors. There's been some rumors that we should address. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.